Did you know that there was an entire era of Pokemon TCG cards that are undervalued and underappreciated? Pokemon investing, Pokemon values, and things like that. And that's what we're going to be talking about first up here on the Gym Leaders podcast. An undervalued and underappreciated, in my opinion, entire era of Pokemon TCG cards. And of course, if you've watched my channel, you know I'm talking about the X and Y era. I would probably say that the X and Y era is probably the one era that just slides under the radar for absolutely everything. It was probably the least played video games. It was probably the least watched anime. And it was, I can almost guarantee you, the least collected TCG sets. Simply because that was during Pokemon's massive cooldown. It was 2014, 15, 16, when I don't want to say Pokemon was dead, because it wasn't dead, but the only people in the Pokemon realm at that time were hardcore collectors and hardcore players, right? That back in 2014, you could buy a Jungle Booster Box first edition still for like $850. $1,000. Like, it was absolutely insane. And if you don't believe me, go watch Primetime Pokemon, who was one of the hardcore collectors making videos back then. And he had so many vintage openings. Like, he was doing vintage openings before vintage openings were cool, before Leonhardt, got into it, before TCA Gaming even got into it. It was Primetime Pokemon opening Jungle, Team Rocket, Fossil, all the Neo Gym Challenge stuff. Like, he was crushing it back in 2013, 14, 15. But nobody was watching. Nobody cared. Nobody cared, because it was really only hardcore people, and, unboxings weren't really a thing back then. So shout out to him for being one of the trailblazers. Hopefully he can, I don't want to say anything negative, but hopefully he can pick up the pace on being a little bit more entertaining, because I want to see him succeed. I want to see him be at that 1 million subs right up there along with Leonhardt and PokeRev and stuff like that. But he definitely needs to step up his game on some entertainment. But big shout out to him for being a trailblazer for sure. So that puts me in a question for the X and Y era. And before I give any of my information, what I'm doing, ASX, I know you came in a little bit after the X and Y era. As have I. You came in during Sword and Shield. I came in towards the tail end of Sun and Moon, mid Sun and Moon. You came in probably like the beginning of Sword and Shield.
It was, right at the beginning.
What are your, when I mentioned to you that I think the X and Y era is an undervalued, underappreciated era, what's the first thing that comes to your mind?
Well, I guess the first thing that would come to my mind is that I really didn't honestly see a lot of that era. When I came into it, when I came into it, there definitely was some product out there on the shelves that had X and Y packs at it in them. Tons of them still. A lot of it was evolutions.
Steam Siege.
I wish I picked it up when I did. I didn't, of course, like a lot of us.
Steam Siege.
Lots of Steam Siege out there, my gosh, and just about every Pokeball you could open, or products like that. So it was cool to see those cards, but they didn't feel. They felt like they were less valued. I don't know. Just, the X and Y era just didn't seem like as spicy to me.
So before 2020, when the boom happened, nobody gave a crap. I remember walking into Target and they would have this little box of packs that were $3.49, unsleeved everything. They were it was hanging on the little wall, and it was kind of like where you find the single packs of sports cards and stuff now that are always empty. But they used to have Pokemon ones. And inside, there was always X and Y sets. There was always Primal Clash, Roaring Sky, Steam Siege, Fates Collide. That's really about it. Sometimes you'd find Primal Clash. But the others, the really better expensive sets as of right now were not in there. There was no Flashfire, Furious Fist, Phantom Forces. Those are some of the earlier sets in the X and Y era. But Breakpoint, Breakthrough, you could pretty much find 80% of the sets in these boxes, and I left them there. Go watch my very beginning Pokemon haul videos. You would see clearance 4-pack collection boxes, like with Evolutions and Steam Siege and Fates Collide and all those in there. And we weren't rushing to buy those. It just wasn't. Right. People were just kind of like, oh, okay, whatever. But I know you were surprised. You said right before we started recording, you were like, man, I was just looking back at the X and Y era cards, and they're amazing. Like the full art cards in this generation, absolutely amazing, guys. And if you don't know, I'm going to tell you specifically what I would like you to go look at, okay? I want you, and I want you guys to do this. I really do. If you're listening or you're watching over on YouTube, I want you to go to TCG Player. I want you to go to the search bar. I want you to type in EX space full space art, okay? EX full art with spaces. Change it to Pokemon only, because some weird stuff pops up for Magic and stuff like that from time to time. And then I want you to narrow it down between most expensive, highest value first. And I want you to take a look at that first page of cards and tell me that those are not some of the most impressive Pokemon TCG artworks that you have ever seen. I'm talking about the Rayquaza, the Charizard, the Venusaur, the Blastoise, the Mew, the Mewtwo, the full arts of this generation. The Kyogre, the Groudon, the Lugia is a phenomenal freaking card. They are all amazing. And pretty much all of them, with an exception of maybe like the top 3 or 4, are all under $100. Yeah. And when you compare that to, let's go ahead and say, Evolving Skies, where you have all of those alternate arts that are over $100, I mean, how much money are people spending to get that Leafeon, that Glaceon alternate art in the packs, right? How many packs have you bought of Evolving Skies to try to pull those because you didn't want to buy the $145 Leafeon alternate art? You can buy right now a Venusaur, a Dragonite, a Blastoise, a Tyranitar EX full art, all for about the price of that one Leafeon alternate art. And it's bananas to me that it hasn't really caught on yet, because the other thing that I want to talk about is how many are available, right? So when you go over even the alternate arts in Evolving Skies, I'm going to look at it right now. I'm going to go to Evolving Skies. I'm going to go ahead and drop it down. I'm going to find myself the Glaceon V, right? So let's just, let's go, where are we? Or the VMAX, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we got, so there's actually not that many on there, extraordinarily rare. But there's 18 Glaceon, 18 Leafeon, and then when you go down to the Vs, you're looking at 40, 45, 49, 57 of the V alternate arts. And then we're going to do that. We're going to go EX, full art.
Mm-hmm.
And just take a look at, let's go ahead and see the Lugia. This Lugia is one of my favorite cards. The Mega Groudon EX, Mega Kyogre EX, the Gengar EX full art is phenomenal. Market price $49. There's only 23 listed over on TCG Player. 23. And you can even have a hard time finding them in near mint condition, because that's all cards. So when you're buying these in near mint condition, let me go ahead and check actual near mints on that Gengar. 4. So out of the 39 Gengars that are on here, there's 4 in near mint condition. That's insane. 4.
That's not a lot.
4.
Right.
Now, let's go ahead and take a look at, there's a Mew. This Mew EX from Dragon's Exalted, market price $88.
Mm-hmm.
1 in near mint condition. Because these cards are older, right? So that's, you get a lot more moderately played. You get a lot more heavily played cards in this entire generation than you are for these VMAX alternate arts, because 9 out of 10 of these are pack fresh when they go up on the alternate arts, Oh, yeah. So out of the 23, out of the 23 Glaceons or whatever were on there, how many of them are in near mint condition? 12, right? Yeah. So half of them are in near mint condition. And they're $50, $60 more. So why do you think the XY full art cards are so, I don't want to say underwhelming, but undervalued? They're so much more affordable than some of these alternate arts we have from Evolving Skies and Brilliant Stars and Fusion Strike, when there's more of them available than there are the EX ones. Like, why do you think they're not catching on?
Yeah, I mean, I would go, right back to kind of what I said when we first started talking about this. Like, it just, there weren't a lot of those packs around when I got back into it. A lot of people got back into Pokemon around the exact same time I got back into Pokemon. And I just feel like, and I can even say this for myself, when I pulled up this list to take a look at this, a whole bunch of these cards on this list, I honestly is probably my first time seeing them. So I just feel like people just don't know about them, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And it goes back to, it not being a super popular time in Pokemon. I'm sure if it was a little bit more of a popular time, some of these cards probably would be doing a little bit better. But I really think that's probably the big chunk of it, is just that people just don't know about this era of cards. You don't look into it very often. It's not something that's brought up really at all. In modern Pokemon, talking about modern Pokemon, the EX era is rarely brought up. So yeah, I think it's just people just aren't aware. Like they are, like everybody talks about alternate arts today. Like that's the hot
The new
topic.
hot thing.
Everybody knows about them. Everybody knows what every one of them looks like and everything like that. And I don't feel like that's the case for these cards. If anybody is like me and looks at this list and is like, man, like, these are the first time I'm seeing these cards, it's got to be that, to me at least.
I definitely recommend you guys go check it out. Like seriously, go do
Yeah,
what I asked you to do, because these cards are absolutely
beautiful.
phenomenal. And like, just go to Furious
Yeah.
Fists as well. There is a Mega Lucario EX gold border secret rare with gold writing, and it is a
Mm,
beautiful freaking card. Market price is $23, right? They're
yeah.
unreal how amazing these cards are in terms of artwork. Everybody talks about how much they love the artwork for the alternate arts and stuff, and like I get it, it's different. The alternate arts are like this almost like more realistic type thing, or it's quirky like
Yeah.
the Machamp and the Giratina that's coming in Lost Origins. And I get that, but these full arts are just absolutely some of the best cards that I have ever seen from the XY era.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to ask you this as well. Do
Hmm.
you think that 10, 15, this is pure speculation, 10,
Hmm.
15 years from now, 20 years from now, do you think that today's Sword and Shield era cards are going to hold a higher value because more people were collecting now than obviously in 14, 15, 16, and they're going to have more sentimental attached value and nostalgic feelings for the for the Sword and Shield era than they had for
Hmm.
the X and Y era? Or do you think that the extra 6 or 7 years of vintage and what's going to end up being more rare, because they are going to end up being more rare, guys? I'm telling you right now,
Yeah.
with these printers being on max, there's going to be significantly more cards from Evolving Skies, Brilliant Stars, Astral Radiance, Lost Origins available 10, 15 years from now than there are these XY sets. Like, where do you think we're going to land? What era do you think is going to be worth more? Like, what are you thinking here?
Yeah. So, if you had to put the two era, the EX era up against, our current Sword and Shield era here, I probably would have to say that the Sword and Shield era is probably going to come out on the better end of things, just because it has that many more people in it, more supporters, right, for this era, more people invested in it with the games and everything, with so many more people into the TCG. I do feel like people are going to have more, put more of a sentimental value on the Sword and Shield era, especially with those alternate arts. I think those are honestly going to be some of the best. Well, they are going to be the best, right? I mean, that's pretty obvious. They're going to be the best cards of the set, but I think they're going to
Yeah.
be, in the grand scheme of things, some of the best, some of the Pokemon cards that hold the value the longest over time. I think from this era. And yeah, I think it comes down to just the amount of people that are in the hobby now than were back then. They're gonna hold. I feel like they're gonna hold this era more sentimental than past eras.